Learning Blade is an interactive STEM and computer science career awareness toolbox. Learning Blade is now offering STEMmer Camp, designed to incorporate Learning Blade's online and offline activities into a 1 or 2 week long summer STEM camp experience, where students gain STEM and computer science career exposure. Use your existing accounts to access STEMmer Camp for free. In this video, Damon Crumley, Learning Blade's Director of Curriculum, will walk you through a day of STEMmer Camp, exploring each of the core elements of a STEMmer Camp session, including hands-on STEM engineering challenges, online Learning Blade missions, student-centered research, and our take-home activity. We hope you enjoy the STEMmer Camp video.
So with our STEMmer Camp, we actually have a 10-session set up. So you've got here, I won't read through all of these, but you can see in front of you a wide variety of STEM careers and technologies. So fresh food, manufacturing concept car, Haiti orphanage, which is really a lot of it is about civil engineering, lightweight aircraft design, rescue robots, which also has some computer science in there, heart surgery, which would be a lot of healthcare, dolphin rescue, this is biomedical technology, transportation congestion, energy production, and then bridge building is another one that works with civil engineering. So that's if you do it in the 10-session setup. And here we've got a sample of the session outline. This one here is where you would break it up into the 5 steps. And so the first part 1 would be something you might do in the morning. We estimate it takes about 45 minutes. Basically, in that one, you're building model airplanes, and then you're measuring how far they go, how much weight they would carry, so that you can actually graph that and see whose airplanes did better in certain categories. Then you would have an online challenge where you would go log in to a Learning Blade account and have the students go through and work on some lessons in the complementary mission that goes with this lightweight aircraft. And then we would continue into a 3rd session there where they would do another hands-on activity doing an aluminum foil boat. And this is where they're each given a square of aluminum foil, and they have to fold it together into a boat, and then they'll put weight into it to see how many pennies or how much weight that the boat can hold before it takes on water and sinks. Then they would do a research challenge where they would explore aircraft concepts, and then they would have a take-home activity, which in this case is a paper craft figure, and it basically is talking about one of the STEM careers that are work in this lightweight aircraft mission. So that's an overview of what you would do if you were administering this in a camp setting. Here we've got an actual detail there of one of the handouts. So this first one here is a paper airplane, and in a second here I'm actually going to show you an example of a simple airplane and then talk through how you would implement this in a STEMmer Camp setting. So after you've done the experiment with the airplanes, you've had the kids throw them, you've had your measurements, and you've recorded all of that, you've been able to graph it, and you've been able to see changes in performances by changing where the mass is on the plane or changing the overall mass of the plane. And so you've been able to graph out that and get all kinds of good data. Once you've done that, now you have some discussion questions that you can ask the students and get that feedback, so that again, it hopefully drives home the overall message of what you're trying to teach and how you're trying to get across to them all this technology and all the careers that are associated with it, how important it is, and get the kids actually thinking through some of these questions that an actual person doing this in their job would have to do as well. This is an example of the worksheet that you would have for the paper airplane. I won't go through filling it out. It's fairly self-explanatory, but basically what you're trying to do is get the students to make their airplanes and then add some variations to it. In our suggestions, you could add additional weight Or you could, if you wanted to, you could vary this by saying, we're going to move the position of the weight, and so you would record that. But here the basic idea is getting students to run through several trials of their airplane with different variables and then to graph those out, because that is a lot of the research that goes on in these STEM jobs where they have an idea and they want to test that idea. And so what we're doing with STEMmer Camp is we're giving them a very simplified trial of that same idea where they are going through the experiments and we're showing them, hey, here's how you can actually get useful data on what works or doesn't work when you're making changes to, in this case, an airplane. Now, in the second part, we're also still talking about lightweight aircraft. And so now we're going to talk about the online mission. And in Learning Blade, there's an entire mission that is dedicated to this idea of what has to go into designing a new lightweight aircraft. And so you would touch on STEM concepts like metals and alloys, mechanical engineering, aircraft design, efficiencies, recycling materials, careers like industrial designer, manufacturing technician. So all of these different areas that go into the question of how do you design an efficient and effective lightweight aircraft. And so you've got online lessons that support this idea and this mission. And so now I'll take you through a sample of one of our lessons in the online lightweight aircraft mission. So once the students have done the online lesson, now they can do another, let's start over. So once you've taken the students through the online lesson, now they can actually do another hands-on activity that works on that same principle of showing them, in this case, the idea of buoyancy, because buoyancy in the air is the same concept as buoyancy in another fluid, water in this case. So the idea of this activity is that each student would be issued the same material, which is basically a square sheet of aluminum foil. In this case, it's 10 inches by 10 inches or approximately 25 centimeters by 25 centimeters. And they're going to fold it into a simple boat, and then we're going to place it into a bin of water, and we're going to start adding weight to it until it can no longer stay afloat, until it basically takes on water and sinks. And so we're going to do measurements, and then with the measurements, we're actually going to make an estimate of how many pennies we think this boat could hold. And so they'll do a lot of measurements. And so like with the paper, they'll do a lot of measurements, and like with the paper airplane, so they'll do a lot of measurements, and like with the paper airplane experiment, this one is also built around doing measurements and making calculations. Only in this case, they're actually going to be making an estimate of how many pennies or how much weight they think their boat can sustain without sinking. So they'll have a series of So they'll have a worksheet, and with this worksheet, it's pretty simple. They'll put down the mass of a penny, the mass of their boat. They'll calculate the boat's volume. They'll calculate the boat's displacement, and then they will calculate how many pennies they believe their boat could hold without sinking. And so it's a very simple worksheet to do. And I'll show you an example of how you would run this experiment. So after the kids have done the experiment with the boat, now you can actually have them do their own research and do a presentation. So it's important that you would give them some sort of, let me start over here. So after the students have done their, So after the students have done their experiment with the boat, now they would, darn it, start again. So after the students had done their experiments with the boat, now they would do a research. So after the students have done their experiment with the boats, now they would do a research project and then do a presentation on one of these concepts that they've learned about in either the Learning Blade online mission or something that they've learned that corresponds with the experiment. And so we give you some examples here. You could have them do research on aircraft or metals and alloy, mechanical engineer, machinist, etc. And so they would do an experiment, and so they would do their research and then put together a presentation. And so it would be on a topic, something to do with some aspect of the airplane design or lightweight metals industry or something related to the project. And we do give them primers here, questions to think about. One expert in the topic, find something interesting that you've learned, create a 1 to 2 minute presentation highlighting your answers to the questions above. And so once they've done that, and again, let's go back. Let's redo this part. Okay. So after the students have done their hands-on experiment with the aluminum foil boat, part 4 is where they would do some research and do a simple presentation of what they've learned. We would suggest that the students go and do research, probably online, of a complementary topic that works within either the online Learning Blade lesson or that's in conjunction with the experiment that they've done. So we've got suggestions here, something to do with aircraft or metals and alloy or mechanical engineering or recycling. And then we'll give you prompts for the students so that it kind of helps them out. Ask them a few questions so that they can begin thinking about this in a little bit more detail. And so these are fields from their worksheet on doing the presentation. So again, they would take bulleted notes on the new information that they had learned on one of these topics. And then they would continue on and we would ask them, okay, now try to find an expert on your topic and learn about them and the work they do. So again, they could go and research someone in the field of metallurgy, for example, and they would write out a simple explanation about them and what they do. And then we ask them to describe the most interesting piece of information that you learned. And so, for example, maybe they learned about some new technology of metallurgy that they didn't know about before. Maybe it's some new technique in welding two different materials that couldn't be welded previously. And so they might write down a brief description of that and why it was interesting or why it's important. And then we say, okay, create a 1 to 2 minute presentation highlighting your answers to the questions above. And so basically they would go either in Word or Google Sheets or something like that, put together a simple presentation, maybe take some images or diagrams that they find in their research, type up some bullet points that support what their presentation is about, and then just simply give that presentation quickly to the group. They could either do it digitally where they hold up their slides on a laptop or a tablet, or they could actually print them out onto paper and present them in front of a room with those as examples. It's flexible and it's really up to you based on what sort of resources you have as an educator that you can actually allow the students to use. But that, in a nutshell, is how the research and presentation portion of the STEMmer camp works. So the last part is part 5. This would be a take-home activity. It's actually been sized down here to fit on the screen, but basically this fits a typical 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It gets printed out, and there are simple instructions where the student takes this, and if they cut out the outline, they can fold it together and either tape or glue it together. And what it forms is a little 3D papercraft figure. And in this case, it's I believe this is an industrial engineer, and on the back of it, it actually has a quick summary of this career. So this is something that the students can take home. They can print out, or they can fold it, cut it out, fold it together, tape it together, and then this would be a little keepsake of what they had learned about in STEMmer Camp in this week. So with this, it encourages them to think about the careers, and also it hopefully helps them remember, oh, this is what I did that week in STEMmer Camp. Oh, I learned about industrial engineering, or I learned about aircraft engineering, or what have you, and they've got this cool little papercraft figure to help them. So with Learning Blade, a lot of what we do is supported by research that shows that by having the students go through even just a couple of lessons online or doing the hands-on activities, we see a dramatic increase in that interest in STEM careers. And we've had that supported by independent research, but also through the anecdotal evidence and quotes from teachers and experiences and case studies that we've seen in schools as well. So you'll typically see a 70 to 80% increase in students understanding that math is helpful at solving interesting problems, and increased in students recognizing that what they're learning in school is going to be used in some career and helpful later in life. A 50% increase in students being interested in taking more advanced math classes. And there's all other ways that it's increased, like the importance of STEM careers and how engineering affects daily life. All across the board, what we see very positive results in kids gaining that awareness and seeing how important these STEM careers and technologies are in the real world. Well, that's generally the end of our presentation here. So I thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, we encourage you to get into contact with us. You can call or email us. We'd love to answer questions. If it's something simple like, hey, what would you advise we do on this day? Or I really like this activity. Do you have something else that you'd recommend that we do in addition to it? Any questions like that, we can certainly help you out. And we basically just want to see that more and more teachers and students take advantage of Learning Blade and the resources that we have. So thank you very much for watching this video, and we hope you enjoy your STEMmer Camp experience. So the area where you can find all of the online resources for STEMmer Camp, you can log in with your teacher account. Here I've logged in, and I'm going to go to the resources section in the main menu. So I'll click that button, and it'll take me over to the resources section. Now if I scroll down, you'll see over here, STEMmer Camp. If I click on that, it'll expand. And now you can see all of the STEMmer Camp lessons. So the one that we looked at today was Session 4, Lightweight Aircraft. And so that's going to ask to save it somewhere on my desktop. And then I open it up. And now you can see the PDF that is printable with all the materials that you need. And so this should look familiar to you. This is everything we covered today. And yeah, it's got all the worksheets, everything you need. You just print that out. And you can get to any of those by logging into learningblade.com with your teacher account. So here we are, logged into Learning Blade as a student, and I'm taken to my mission. Start over. So here we are, logged in as a student in Learning Blade. I'm on the My Mission screen in the main menu, and so I'm going to go into the lightweight aircraft. Now with Learning Blade, you can either take students through one of the lessons in the expert. All right, start again. So here we are logged in as a student in Learning Blade. We're on the My Mission screen in the main menu. And for this particular STEMmer camp, we're dealing with I can't even talk. Start over. Okay, so here we are logged in as a student in Learning Blade, and we're on the My Mission screen in the main menu. Now for this example, we're going to be learning about lightweight aircraft. Now, Learning Blade is designed so that you can either go through an express version of a mission or a full version. Basically, a full version has more lessons in it, but you could go through either of these. In our case, we're going to go through a full mission. But again, these are the same lessons, it's just that you have more of them. Now, the first thing you'll see when you go through Learning Blade is this introduction that takes you through a few pages that talks about the idea of the mission. In this case, we're talking about how we're helping a friend out as she's trying to have a new aircraft designed for her company that's going to meet the specific needs of delivering relief personnel and supplies to remote areas around the world. And so because her aircraft has a certain, very specific set of requirements, they want to make sure they find the right company who can build them the right aircraft to meet their needs. And so you're helping her go through on a plant tour, and you're learning about how aircraft are designed and built. And so that's the idea of this lightweight aircraft mission. And if you go through these pages, it basically tells you that simple story that I just explained. Now I'm going to exit out of that because I basically just told you the story, and we don't really need to read it. But once we've done through that, now we can start working in any of the lessons in Learning Blade. We group our lessons in Learning Blade into tools and teammates. Tools are STEM technologies. So you can see there on your screen, metals and alloy, modern aircraft, automation and mechatronics, innovative materials, recycling. Those are all the STEM technologies. We've also grouped the other lessons as STEM teammates. Modern machinist, manufacturing technician, mechanical engineer, welding, industrial designer. So in the summer camp setting, we would just say, let the students be self-led. They can choose whichever one of these seems the most interesting. So maybe in my case, I want to learn about industrial designer. So I'll click on that. And now I've got all these lessons here that I can go through that will teach me about what an industrial designer does and what it's like. So one good one here is a day in the life of an industrial designer. So I'll click on that. So what this will tell me about is the career of industrial designer. And again, it's not limited just to lightweight aircraft, which is sort of the idea of our overall mission. But here they're also talking about products that get designed. And so maybe that's interesting to your students there. But again, the idea here is just to give them that STEM awareness of what an industrial designer does. And if you go through the pages here, you're going to learn a little bit about that and, the importance of industrial design, how it's changed over the years. And then it'll ask them a few questions. In this case, they've had a little bit of reading about industrial design in the 20s. And so now they're going to drag over the correct answer to this blank. Let's see. The increased interest in purchasing these created a blank marketplace. It created a competitive marketplace. Oops, let me drag that over. And I can submit my answer, and that's correct. Okay. Now, if I didn't get that right, it would ask me to take one more try at it, and that's fine. And then I would just go ahead. After every quiz, there's an answer page. So even if I didn't get it right, I still get the benefit of the answer page and seeing what the correct answer was. Now, in a lot of cases, the teachers are maybe more concerned with whether or not the kids get it right. In your case, with STEMmer Camp, you're probably not that concerned with how many right or wrong answers that the students get. For you, it's really going to be more about STEM awareness and just having them go through this. So, for example, if I were a student and if I got every one of these wrong, it really wouldn't matter because what I'm learning about is how an industrial designer has become more valuable to making products as time goes by. And so, really, if I got all of these wrong, it wouldn't really prevent me from having a full STEMmer Camp experience because, like I said, I'm at least getting that exposure to what an industrial designer is. So all of that just to say, don't get too hung up on if your students are saying, oh, this is so hard. Just reassure them that, getting it right or wrong really isn't the point. The point is, are they learning more about what an industrial designer is or what an industrial designer does? So If I go through the rest of this lesson, and I'm going very quickly here, this is actually much faster than what you would expect a student, because again, I'm not really reading it. I'm just sort of clicking around just to go through here. In your case, you would hope the students would be reading a little bit more. And again, we are supporting everything that we do online with, there is a step later on in our activities where they will have to do some research and give a presentation. So this right here is one part of the research that they would do. So by going through this, I'm actually getting some of that research done. I'm learning about what an industrial designer is. Here I might get I think it's a master's degree. There we are. That's correct there. And so I'll just go through a few more pages here just so you can see. And we've basically gone up into modern times where now we're talking about 3D models and, now I'm dragging these in the order. So the finished product will go last. I'll probably have sketches first. I'll probably do a 3D model next, then make a prototype, and then have a final. So, yep, that would be the order of those steps. Again, I have an answer page. And so we sort of wrap it up here. We've been talking about the day in life of an industrial designer. And there we are on our final page. So click exit, and we are done. So that's what it would be like taking a student through a simple lesson. And when I say take them through it, you don't actually have to be there administering it. It really can be self-led. And like I said, you would basically tell them, oh, go into the lightweight aircraft mission and go through a lesson that it seems interesting to you. So in my case, I chose industrial designer, but they might have chosen recycling, or let's see, if I back up, what are some of my other choices here? Modern aircraft. Maybe they would go into that one and they would learn about the solar impulse, which is a solar powered aircraft that has flown around the world. So, if this is what was interesting to them, this might be the lesson they work on. So again, we're not so caught up in how well they do on the actual quizzes. What we're really concerned is letting the students go through, have fun, and choose the ones that are interesting to them, and just get that awareness of understanding either the technology or the career that gets used in this mission.